Typical new John St. Baptiste here. Jen St. Baptiste. Amy True Than True is not going to be able to make it today. She's had a very hectic day. 11 o'clock over on her side of the pond, and she really just needs a little rest. So, unfortunately, you're just going to have to deal with me today. My apologies. But I do want to say hi to everybody out there. We, of course, have Brun Holler, the one spanner that rules them all. It's really cool. Last week I actually got to meet, well, online in person, but very cool to talk to. We got Peter Griffin. At least he was here for a moment. Maura Lee. And, oh, of course, anime lover Nicole, who, by the way, if you caught the video, great. If you did not, it's in the description below. Midweek Music Ear Candy was released today, and it was a track that anime lover Nicole shared with me. Really cool track, really cool band. So I was excited to do that. And I hope that everybody else enjoys it as much as I did. That's in the description down there. Also, if you've got a little extra cash and you want to do something great, a very good friend of the channel, Lauren's Corner, is raising money for cancer research right now. She's actually cutting off almost 2 feet of hair, and she's apparently going to be doing this live. And the hair is also going to be donated. So the link's right down there in the description. So we'll go into this episode, Murder of Gods, Season 1, Episode number 6, which, if anybody has any questions, like, this is a pretty confusing episode. I like how this episode was done. There are certain things I don't like about it, which I will get to in a little while. And it's not that I don't think they were well done. It's a mentality thing that I think is slightly an exaggeration portrayed. And when I get to that, for those of you who do not live here in the States, I really want your thoughts and opinions on it. So please have them ready. And I'm sure if you've been watching this channel for a while and you know, one of my big enthusiasms is you know exactly what I'm talking about, but we will get into that in a little bit. So we start off with the Coming to America, which this was just really visceral to watch. You know, this scene, they are so good. The production crew and the editors and the directors who they hire for these episodes are so good at setting up a certain feeling. And the way this episode begins with the crossing the river to jump the border, because America's the land of promise, and for a lot of people, not for everybody, of course. I'm looking at you, Nicole. I would love your medical care. That'd be really nice. On the other hand, I like keeping the large chunk of my paycheck that I keep, so I guess it's a bit of a toss-up. Sorry, I'm not going to push any buttons there. It's something I thought was funny. But, the crossing the border scene, and, you know, these are people who are in such desperate straits in general that, you know, this is dangerous. Before they even get in the river, the Lobo who's leading them says, you know, hey, if you can't swim, stay here. You're not going to be able to make it. And the one man who obviously can't, tries to swim across, and he almost drowns. And then Jesus, yes, Jesus, reaches down and pulls him out of the water and helps him cross. And everybody's across, and he says, "Thank you. Who are you?" And Jesus says to him, "You know who I am." And then this light lights up behind him, and you think it's going to be this, just angelic type of, yeah, not angelic. That's not the word I'm looking for. It's the word I'm looking for. Divine moments. I've never taken anybody on the tour of my house, and I'm getting ready to move, so it would be kind of pointless. But I have a lot of Byzantine artwork, and the haloing of saints and angels in Christ is it's really cool how that's done, and it gives you an immediate thought and idea and response. And what it actually is these headlights for these people who are literally hunting border crossers. And if you don't think this happens here in the States, actually it does. There are people like that. A small minority of people who are like that, but there are people like that. And it's one of those gray area legal things that some people, yeah, I don't even want to get into the legalistics of it. But, and then along with so many of the refugees, Christ himself gets shot. And of course, you have the stigmata wound to his right hand. And then you have the falling down and, laying in what Chris Cornell quite succinctly once called the Jesus Christ pose. But, it's a really moving piece of cinema. And if you pay attention to the reference numbers on the bullets, there's actually a nice little Easter egg clue to something later in this episode. I don't know if you even call it an Easter egg. I think it's kind of obvious. Brown Holler says YouTube's being stupid to her again. She's going to log out and log back in, so hopefully we see her back here very shortly. And did anybody out there notice that on the stock of the rifle for one of these incognito border guards, I guess is the kindest way to put it, it says "Thy kingdom come," which is from the Lord's Prayer. I think it's I think there's a certain level of irony to this entire scene. It's kind of disturbing on a lot of levels. But if anybody had any thoughts about that opening scene, please share them. I'll give you a moment to do so. And I'm sorry about these episodes that it's just me. I do my best, but I don't know if I'm the best. There are a lot of YouTube content creators out there who can monologue it a lot better than I can. So I hope you're enjoying yourselves. We move on to Shadow and Wednesday, and this is directly and immediately following the scene in which they left the police station, where a whole lot of crazy shit happened. And they're walking because they get taken there in the police car. They don't have a vehicle. And, Shadow says, what the fuck happened? And Wednesday's like, that's not the question. That's not a question. What you need to be asking is what's real and what's not. And he gets into this really cool conversation about this really cool conversation about did men create gods or did gods create men, which is kind of the theme of this entire book. And if you really look at it, it's almost like the theme of 90% of Gaiman's work. Now, I'm not one of those people who subscribes to the idea that there's a shared universe between all of Gaiman's work, but I would go as far to say it's almost like a shared multiverse, if that makes sense to anybody. Hey, Bear Island Josh is here. Good to see you, Josh. We also have Bobby Catalano. Bobby, I hope you're staying dry down there. You've got your hurricanes down there in Florida, so I hope you're staying dry, staying powered, doing okay. I pretty much spend like 4 months of the year concerned about you because you live on a peninsula in one of the most hurricane-racked parts of the world. So I'm always concerned. So it's always good to hear from you. So I love that while they're having this discussion. Oh, here's your Shade cameo for the episode. There you go, Shade. All right, go do your thing now. You got your cameras on. Oh, sorry about that. And Shadow finally asks, "Who are you?" And I love that Wednesday says, "You wouldn't believe me if I told you," which is something we find out later for those of you who have gone through season 2. Yeah, morally, she's a beautiful kitty. She's also a royal pain in the ass, but I do love her. And she shits constantly, but at least she doesn't have a tail, so I don't have to deal with that part of it too. Thank heavens. I'm supposed to stop apologizing. All right, Brown Holler. I'll try not to make any apologies for anything for the rest of this episode. But yeah, I think it's really interesting that for those of you who have got to season 2, or for those of you who are just on first season, you will find out what Wednesday means when he says, "If I told you who I am, you wouldn't believe me." And he asks, and I think this is really interesting, something you should put a pin in, if Laura apologized when she showed up dead. He asks if she apologized for the way her life ended. And they're finally back at the hotel, and we see the Raven standing there on the sign. And the conversation keeps going on. I love that Wednesday says, "So your dead wife showed up, or are you scared?" And Wednesday's like, "Hey, I'm heading out of here. After all the shit that just happened, I'm getting out of here. You can come or stay as you like." Shadow gets in the car, and we see Laura chasing the car. So quite obviously, Wednesday is trying to keep Shadow away from Laura for some reason. I think that's kind of given by now. And then we enter Mad Sweeney. And I love the yes, Brown Holler belief is integral to the whole series. I completely 100% agree. I think that's kind of what that's what I felt since the first time I read the book. Like, shit, what is it? 18, 20 years ago when it came out? But I love the banter between Sweeney and Laura. I think Brown Holler would be a Terminator 2 style chase if he had caught the car. But yeah, I agree with you. The running after the car is pretty. I think there are a lot of things that I need to go back and just look at this series from a film lover's perspective, because I think there are a lot of scenes like that are, for lack of a better term, homages to other films that have been made. And now that I think about it, I think that's definitely one of them. Definitely. But yeah, we've got some great lines there. And everybody, it's not just Sweeney who, by the way, refers to Laura as the dead wife. Wednesday calls her that too. He just uses your dead. He uses a pronoun, but Sweeney's talking to her, and he's like, I want my coin back. I mean, that's his driving motivation. And she's like, no, this is keeping me alive. He's like, you're not alive. Now, I know somebody who can help you be alive. I can help facilitate that, but you're not alive. What you need, like my good friend Jesus Christ, is resurrection. Yeah, agreed, Brown Holler. I like how they changed two minor characters and gave them a whole new dimension. Absolutely agreed. But, Sweeney explains to her, he's like, you're not alive. You just, that coin that you have is basically keeping your body moving and doing things. But, what does he say? Uh, you're going to start rotting, especially in the summer heat, because we notice later in the episode that Easter's coming up. We see people dying Easter eggs. He said, in this heat, you're going to be soup. And soup don't win her dead husband back. Or soup don't win her husband back. Sorry. And once again, she asked him before. He told her the truth. She said, what the fuck are you? He was like, I'm a leprechaun. And so they're arguing while he's trying to steal a car, which I absolutely love. That they go into some of the semantics about cars. There are some cars that are easier to steal than others. I won't tell you how I know that. Just has to do with some things in my youth, but we'll go ahead and keep that quiet, right? Anyway, I think I'm outside the statute of limitations. Morally, looking forward to seeing Matt Sweeney and Laura's relationship, how it grows in season 3. Yeah, absolutely. the two actors just play off each other so very well. So then we have Salim come out, and he's got a gun. Please stop stealing my car. And he's like, "Did you say you're a leprechaun?" Yeah. And they get talking about these mystical worshipped beings, and Salim asks if he's seen a jinn. And I love, Mad Sweeney gets all the best dialogue in the show. Oh yeah, Barry Allen, Josh. Yeah. Laura does ask Sweeney. She's like, "Did you just name drop Jesus Christ?" And he's like, "Yeah, I know him, or a friend of a friend knows him, or it was, yeah, quite well done scene." But yeah, Sweeney, or I'm sorry, Salim asks, "Do you know a jinn?" And Sweeney, like I said, he gets the best lines. Fire for eyes, shit for brains. And Salim's like, "Yeah, no, yeah, no. Well, kind of." And finally, we get to the title of this episode, which I keep meaning to do, but I need to go back and look and see if every episode sneaks its name into the episode at some point in time, because I've noticed it a few times, and I think Amy and I might have even discussed this when we were talking about season 2. But I'm pretty sure they sneak the name of the episode into every episode. I'm gonna have to look back and see that. But yeah, in this episode, so Sweeney's like, "Oh, you want me to help you find him? Oh, I can help you find this, that, and the other. I can help you find a whole murder of gods, demi and otherwise." And yeah, as Ron Holler says, Laura's just staring at them. She's, it's the thing about the moons, both Laura and Shadow, the way they're portrayed in the show, is they're ordinary people dealing with extraordinary events. And so therefore they give the audience a view of how you would see things if you were in this kind of situation or a similar one, and how you would see and probably react to such things. So yeah, she's just standing here, and they're talking about jinn and gods and demigods, leprechauns and all this, and she's just like, which is ironic because she's literally the Walking Dead. So we flash back to Shadow and Wednesday and Bessie, the beautiful black Cadillac, which takes a licking and keeps on ticking. But yeah, Wednesday starts talking about all the charms he knows, which this is one of the things that I did not like quite as well in the show as in the book. Yeah, Beryl and Josh, I agree. You'd think that being a revenant, she'd accept stuff more easily, but she really doesn't. But in the book, the scene where Wednesday talks about all the charms that he knows, it's a very morose moment, and this is more of a, I guess you'd say, like snarky, ironic, amusing moment. So it's still well done. Don't get me wrong. I don't. I like that he started the whole monologue, but didn't really finish it, and that really makes me hope that in season 3 we get to hear that entire monologue because I think it's one of the best from the entire book. But then, speaking of charms, Shadow finally reveals that he was like cut open, and it was a pretty bloody situation. And you find this root of a tree because there was the tree that was in the police station that I guess left its spore in Shadow. And Wednesday's like, "Oh, I know a charm for that." And while he's healing Shadow, he talks about how trees were everybody has a God-shaped hole, and trees were the first to fill it. I think that's a really cool and powerful statement. And then he goes on to say, to worship something, to believe in something, to make something a god, you have to accept a certain level of fucked up. Which, as essentially a person of faith, I accept that. I to believe in things that you can't codify, you can't make a physical form of, you can't, have that thing there. It does take a certain level of faith, and faith takes a certain level of fucked up. I absolutely agree. I don't think that's remotely. What's the word I'm looking for? I'm just a loss for words today. I don't think that's remotely sacrosanct or what's the word I'm looking for? Heretical. Thank you. I think it's I think it's a very bold statement. So we switch back to the car ride, the odd trio of Sweeney, Salim, and Laura. And I just love the way this scene's done. I love Salim's monologue here about being scared of everything. Because that's A, because it's partially taken from the book, and B, because it's just perfectly, it's so well written. I used to be scared of everything. I came to America. I was scared of black people. I was scared of the Jews, the ones who wear all black and I can tell are, and the ones who don't and I can't tell are. I was scared of cars. I was scared of the noise. I was scared, it's really cool. And this entire time, Laura's watching Shadows Glow get further and further away because they're headed to Kentucky. And once again, great Matt Sweeney dialogue. I think I'm going to have an anxiety attack here because I'm so worried they won't shut the fuck up. As much as I love Salim's character, there are certain people who have wanted to say that too before. And yeah, you guys are right. Laura, there's a possibility that her self-centeredness, she hasn't even considered the possibility of everything else. Brown Holler always has just so many great points. And she didn't believe in anything before she died, hence half the crap from Rose's death scene. Yeah, I mean, that's why, she wasn't met by her creator or anything like that. She was met by Anubis. Terribly interesting. And then for the first time, we see Laura get really nasty with Sweeney because Sweeney says a word that Laura doesn't really care for, which I understand given certain upbringing from people from Ireland and living in America. There's that certain word that people look at as very much more offensive over here than they do over there. Uh, and she just grabs him by the lips and says, the next time you say that, I'm going to rip your lips off. And then Laura closes the, because Sweeney keeps bitching about hearing Salim's story. And so Laura just closes the little cabby window. And she asks if he minds if she smokes, and he's like, I would prefer it if you didn't smoke in my car. She's like, what is it, the smell? It smells like somebody shit in your back seat. And he's like, someone did shit in my back seat. Yeah, you could never talk me into being a taxi driver. And yeah, you're right. Yeah, Salim, once again, Brown Holler. Salim's hardly even phased by the fact that Laura's dead. He's just like, are you dead? You smell dead. And I I just like this. And then we learned something about Laura. When she was a kid, she had this very forced religious upbringing. And because of that, she didn't really believe in it. This is part of the reason she doesn't believe in anything. A friend of mine who's a very, very, very adherent atheist, we've had a conversation about this. His parents were atheists. And he and I can talk about all sorts of things that a lot of atheists I wouldn't be able to talk about. And he made a point to me. He's like, the people who were raised in a strict religious background, when they become atheists, like have to essentially be evangelical atheists. And I had never thought about it until my friend and I had that conversation. But it's a hell of a bloody good point because people who were raised in that manner are just like, But you have people like Laura who are actively like, no, fuck that, there's nothing, so on and so forth. Um, and she says, the priest asked her to pray for something because they had to pray. And he's like, pray for your family. And she's like, I prayed they'd disappear. And then Salim says something that, it goes back a lot to a lot of theologians, particularly uh, Augustine. And he says, I don't pray to ask for things, I pray to say thank you. And, he mentions that, he met the jinn and that changed his life. And Sweeney clues in that Salim's gay. And so he makes some great double entendre statements. I do think, did you rub one out of his lamp? And, oh, did you have a genie in your bottle? Like, it's just it's something that if it were delivered in any other way, it'd be awful. But the way, Pablo delivers it, you're just like, oh my god! It's like you have that friend who can get away with saying shit that you would never try and get away with saying, but he says it, and you're just like, yeah, I gotta laugh. That's funny. Um, and then a scene that I love as story development is showing the two different cars on the map and the direction that the car Wednesday and Shadow are in, and the car that Laura and Salim and Sweeney are in are going in different directions, and they share the roads. I just think it's really, really, really well done. So we've hit the halfway point here. I'm going to take my usual 5-minute break or 2-minute break, and Amy is not here to talk to you. So if you would, please leave any questions you have about the episode so far in the comments, and I will be back in 2 minutes or less. Cross my heart. See, 2 minutes or less. I very much appreciate that you're all so very accepting of me having to take my regular breaks whenever I live stream, because yeah, this joke I've had for a while. God has a very, very uh, ridiculous and off kilter sense of humor, and somewhere there is a mouse or gerbil wandering around that only has to use the bathroom once a year because when God was making creatures, he gave me its bladder and gave that small rodent mine. Yeah, I agree with you, Maura and Josh. Like, it, I'm not getting on a high socio-political course or anything like that, but we live in a society where people apologize for everything. They're supposed to feel guilty about everything they think and feel and do, and a big part of that is because they know that you say something and people think that you mean you mean a lot more than what you're saying. And so, there's it. I really like that you have people like that. Yeah, I like curmudgeonous old people who say shit that's not politically correct. Like, it really doesn't bother me, even if it's directed at me. I just laugh it off, you know. It's funny how if Laura hadn't made Salim take the detour, she probably would have caught up with Shadow and Vulcan. Yeah, she probably would have. Laura's very much a 2 steps forward, 2 steps back type of person. It's kind of her story development. I think it's just part of our nature, you know. There's my notebook. Sorry, I had to waffle there for a second. But you know, yeah, the way Sweeney's character, he doesn't apologize for anything. You know, this is me, warts and all. And if you don't care for it, like, you have another option. Well, unless you're Laura, then you don't have another option because he's going to be on you like a fly on shit until he gets his freaking coin back. Otherwise, though, hey, just take it. But then we move on to the Foundry, and we see the accident that happens. I love how the scene is shot. I can't remember the name of the piece that they have playing during it. It's an early 1970s piece. I should have written it down because I knew the piece of music, but I can't remember it right now. Cool. If anybody does, please let me know. But then we have the accident. And we see the manufacturing of ammunition. And Wednesdays, welcome to Vulcan, Virginia. Everybody has their America, he goes on to say a bit later. And it's seen with, Lady Liberty is always seen with a different face. Oh, that's interesting, Brown Hollow. Apparently, Neil, while he was driving through somewhere, saw a statue of Vulcan. That's pretty cool. And that was kind of like his inspiration for that, because it is a city that doesn't exist. And this is also something not from the show. Now, one of my few pieces of criticism that I'm going to give this episode or this show in general, I really wish that Vulcan walked with a limp. It kept bothering the living piss out of me that he doesn't walk with a limp. Like, it's so integral to his character that I think leaving that out, even if they made it minor, even if they had made it like a really minor thing, it, I think, would have been an homage to something that I have always felt was like quite integral to that deity, is that he's crippled and he walks with a limp, and so leaving that out, it's one of my few criticisms of it this episode, but honestly, it's very minor, very minimal. An anime lover, Nicole, I don't know if it could be a city that could exist, but that is how a stereotype. I'm thinking you're going to say that's how a stereotype works. Okay, so let's get to the elephant in the corner. Anyone who's been following my channel for a while, especially my discussion episodes, like on Wednesdays when we do the Leaf, knows that I'm a pretty big firearm advocate. I like firearms. I think they're necessary. This is actually why I said I like people who don't live in the States. I would like their thoughts and opinions and feelings. My other criticism, and this is a big one, and I understand why it was done, but I feel like they're the way that most people who own firearms were portrayed in this episode gives the exaggerated impression that every Second Amendment rights advocate and every militia member is a white nationalist. Uh, you know, and I have to say, the first time I watched this episode, like, all the armbands really pissed me off a lot. That's just me personally. Uh, and not everybody's like that. Not everyone who advocates, or even people who are obsessive like me. Like, if I had a small child in my house, yeah, I wouldn't have all the dangerous things that I have. But I don't, and it's important to me for a number of reasons. And it's just something that it, it I understand why it was done, but it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I think it was there. But on the same note, we're talking in this episode, and this is what made me change my mind about that entire sequence, is that we're talking about mythology because they're all over the world, and even here in the States, which you have different groups of people who have different thoughts and feelings and so forth. That's how they look at people who are big gun advocates. Because that's what you see on the news. That's what you see on media. And Barrel and Just says, I don't think they were lumping it like that so much as satirizing the homosexuals. I've never heard that term. I guess I'm probably an amosexual, but I have no desire to shoot other people outside of self-defense, and certainly not just for being different than me. But you got to remember, gingers have no souls, so I might be lying to you. But so yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. Initially it kind of bothered me, but I thought about it, and that's what this whole show is about: is mythology and the way people interpret not just deities and gods and spiritual things such as that, but also how people interpret the world they live in. And I think anything more than anything, after a few watch throughs of this episode, I think it's actually a statement about mass media and how so much of America has so much world, but America in particular has a certain view of the other than, and it's because we have this 24-hour news cycle of people who are, so far to the left or so far to the right that their thoughts are just ridiculous. And we have a situation where you there's no cohesive conversation about issues and things like that. Okay, that's all the politics, all of it done for today. Josh, you live in Oklahoma. I'm not one of those guys. Well, thank you. There's some cool people in Oklahoma. I liked Oklahoma when I went through it. Tulsa was pretty cool. Oklahoma City was kind of scary, just because I think of where I was staying, but you could smell the meth labs. But hey, it's a big state, and you get a lot of free area, which is pretty awesome. Because where I live, we stack houses on top of each other, and I have to move into a neighborhood that's even more condensed here in about a month. So I'm not looking forward to that. On the other hand, I don't think I could handle living out in the middle of nowhere. I don't think I would do well with that. I need like the balance in between. But going back to the show, I tried to do my share of Amy and I waffling off topic. Hope it worked. It was okay. But every couple of people used to be tossed in the volcano. That is actually how they used to worship and pray to Vulcan. Okay, Brown Holler. Yeah, I agree with you. The weapons bearing, etc. in this town was reinforcing the worship process or aspect. Vulcan controls the town, so they're all over the top. I agree to an extent. I just, it was the portrayal. Like, it would have been nice to see a person of color, especially since Vulcan's a Mediterranean god. And yeah, uh, but like I said, it's a small nitpicky thing, and yeah, the bigger thing I came around on. But yeah, so that was the way people used to worship Vulcan. They tossed him in the volcano, and then we see the accident, which that's still that whole scene with the the boss walking through the plant and all the happy music, and then he dies because he hops on a ramp. And Wednesday's explaining every couple of times a year it happens, and it's easier to just take care of paying restitution than fixing and changing everything to make it a safer place to work, which I may have seen once or twice in my life. And then Vulcan and Wednesday meet up at this parade they're having as a ceremony to honor the foreman who died in the um, as the foreman who died in the manufacturing plant. So, and then it gets to the end, and everybody shoots their guns up in the air. Let me tell you, as somebody who likes guns a lot, I have never once done that in my life. It's extremely unsafe because, as Wednesday points out, Shadow, the bullets that what goes up must come down. Also, it's terribly expensive. It's pretty expensive. But hey, some people that's the thing. That's what they want to do. If you're not hurting anybody else, go ahead and do it. And then Shadow meets Vulcan for the first time, and there's a really interesting interaction that goes on here in a bit. But I'm just going scene by scene, so we'll get back to that in just a moment. And we're back at Jack's bar. Now, I still want to know who Jack is. It never says in the book. I feel there's kind of an allusion in the telly show, but not quite direct. I want to know. Yes, Barrel and Josh, that poor Cadillac. I almost cried the first time I saw it. At least it was a Cadillac and not something like an Alfa. Because if it had been a Romeo or like an Aston, I would have cried. I definitely would have cried. Josh, you're a large man. I mean, you're big. Do you like small cars or do you like bigger cars? Because I'm very tall, and I like teeny tiny cars. I get made fun of pretty often, but hey, the best thing about having two seats is nobody ever asks you for a ride or to help them move shit. It's great, absolutely great. But yeah. So does anybody have any theories about who Jack is? If you do, please drop them in the chat or drop them in the comments down below if you're watching this later. By the way, anybody who's watching this later, please do so. Is that an Austrian god of alligators or something like that? Or some other countries? Yeah. Alligators are only native to America. I think in North America. There are crocodiles in the old world, but I don't think. Yeah, okay, you have crocodiles, Brown Hollow. They're vaguely related, but no, I I just wonder because there has to be something to it, especially because they make her character so much more noticeable in this than it was in the book. But yeah, so we're back at Jack's, and Laura talks about how she has no shame. And about how once you're dead, you don't need to have any shame. And my favorite phrase from this entire episode is "fuck those assholes." When they're talking about drawing unnecessary attention. And Sweeney retorts, "Well, you keep saying fuck those assholes. Why are you heading back to your hometown? Because now you're trying to bury your face in them." Which I thought was a very, very succinct thing for him to point out. And then they talk about when she kissed Shadow. And it's something you don't think about when you read the book, or at least I didn't think about when I read the book. Where they have the, kiss me puppy scene. The Sweeney points out, like, what did you taste? Cigarettes and vomit? And then he points out something that I think uh, is very important. You might want to stick a pin in. He says, he ain't your man, he's Wednesdays. And then they have the conversation with Salim about anal sex. And it was pretty graphic. That's why these videos are marked adults only, because just this scene has a whole lot of stuff that you can get away with on children's television. But Sweeney points out to Laura, he's like, well, your love is the biggest butt fuck of them all. Shadows let you go. Like, you're dead. You're still dead. You're just holding on. Which, kind of makes you think about any situation where you have ghosts or poltergeists or creatures that hang on to what they had in life and now they no longer do. So we flash back to Vulcan, Virginia. And when Shadow walks in the gate, there's an ash tree there with a rope hanging from it, which is a recurring motif throughout this whole show. Which will be revealed in the next episode or two. But, he directly asks Shadow if he's ever seen a man hang. And he points out that a lot of people find religion on the gallows, and he says it's a horrible thing to find your faith when you're twitching, hanging from a tree. And all these references, and Shadow knows that he got lynched. And he's like, Wednesday, did you tell him? Wednesday's like, no, I didn't say anything about it. And that clues Wednesday into something, which we'll get to in a moment. So Wednesday brings him something called Soma, which anyone who's familiar with Indian religion, Eastern Indian religion, is a drink that the gods drink that is basically distilled worship. And they meet in Vulcan's den, I guess you would call it, office, lounge, atrium, I'm not sure. But, he offers Wednesday a drink, and he says, Shadow, none for you, to Shadow. And, that kind of got the hamster running a little bit. And then I'm sorry, I'm trying to read my notes that were written very hastily in the middle of the night. Oh, and then we get to Vulcan talking about bullets and worship, and it's look at this, it's filled with prayers. His whole monologue about every time somebody hears a bullet fire in a dark theater, everybody prays, and some of that worship goes to me. And I see Shadow's starting to catch on to what really might be going on. Wednesday's catching on to something that's revealed in just a few moments. The heat on their hand, it keeps them warm every night. There's a certain satisfaction to know that you can protect yourself in the middle of the night. So a lot of people do feel that way. And a lot of people maybe think that. So there are a lot of people out there who take it way too far. They're wrong. But Wednesday is trying to get Vulcan to join this war, like he's been doing with everybody. And Vulcan says, "I was on the bus before they painted it yellow." And Wednesday, he's like, "What do you need from me?" And Wednesday's like, "Forge me a blade." And then really interesting, Shadow says, "So you trust him?" And Wednesday's response is, "I knew who he is. So I know what he'll do." And then Shadow brings up the whole thing about discussing the lynching, and he's like, "I took that as a personal fuck you." And Wednesday's like, "Well, anything that's done to you or to me is a personal fuck you to me." And then he asks from out of nowhere about Laura visiting Shadow, and he's like, "Okay, well, where is she?" And Shadow can envision it. He knows she's at her mom's house, watching her family. They can't see her. This is when we see the Easter eggs getting done. And he asks if he can let her fade away. And then we see that the scene is actually happening. Laura went to her parents' house, and Salim and Sweeney are waiting in the car. And she goes and gets back in, and she's like, "Let's get out of here." And Salim's like, "Fuck those assholes?" She's like, "Yeah, fuck those assholes." We get to this great forging scene, forging the blade, which is pretty well done. I've watched some blacksmithery before, and I've watched some weapon making before. It's pretty accurate. I was actually pretty impressed with that. And we get talking about blood sacrifice. And then it's revealed that Vulcan has sold himself out to the new gods. And, Hephaestus gives this great speech about how they've given him power. and he's no longer this like forgotten thing. I should have written it down word for word, but I did not. It's just really brilliantly done. And Wednesday asks if they're on their way, and he's like, "Yeah, they are." And he had just put this sword that he made in Wednesday's hands, and Wednesday points out, "You swore yourself to me, you made this blade for me. So you've reneged on your promises." And then he just slashes his freaking throat and pushes him into his own vat. Makes him another sacrifice. He's like, "Oh no, see, there will be a martyr. It's going to be you. Because they came to kill it, and you got killed. So you'll be the first martyr of this." It was, yeah, Ron Holler, I love how the scene was done. I was just about to get that. Shadow's like, "Oh my god, oh, what the hell just happened?" And Odin's unzipping his pants. Wednesday's sitting here unzipping his pants, and what are you doing? And he says, "I'm cursing the whole fucking thing." And then we go back to the whole manufacturing of the ammunition again, which is just great. It's just we know that these bullets have a curse on them. I wonder what it's going to be. I do wonder. If anybody has any conjunctures about that, please drop them down in the chat. Finally, we end the episode with Celine Prey. And if anybody out there is or knows very well a practicing Muslim that pray 5 times a day, always towards Mecca, and so he literally, it gets back to one of the big keys of the show, which is about faith. And he literally stops the car in the middle of this journey, and he's got to pray. And the body language in this scene is really great. Like Sweeney's sitting here, and he's like, "I want to be irritated, but I'm not. I think I'm supposed to act irritated, but I'm really not." Like that's what I got from his body language. It's something we're going to find out in the next episode. And Laura is just kind of intrigued and bored at the same time. It's really interesting, but the body language in the scene I think is really great. And then she asks, him after he's finished praying, what he's doing so, and explains to her the prayer, and the repeated thing in that prayer is God is great, God is good, and Laura says life is great. He says yes, life is great, and then we fade out. And this version they end the episode with of "I Put a Spell on You" has to be one of my top 3 favorite versions of that song that have ever been done. I really enjoyed it. So, does anybody have any thoughts about this episode? Any thoughts about what might be happening next week? Spoiler free, please, of course. Okay. Well, yeah, Beryl and Josh, I absolutely agree with you. I think Sweeney appreciates belief in general, especially because he has so little anymore. We get to find out a lot more about Matt Sweeney in the next episode, and his history and his past. Yeah, Beryl and Josh, I agree. Screaming Jay Hawkins just kicks some ass. I do, however, have to say my very favorite version of the song is probably Nina Simone's, and Marilyn Manson's is a close second. Screaming Jay Hawkins, though, is pretty freaking awesome. Also, Creedence. Creedence did a really good job of covering that. Yes, absolutely, Anime Lover Nicole. Killing Vulcan was a big fuck you to the new gods. But the way the old gods are going to view it is that the new gods killed Vulcan. Wednesday's a pretty clever guy. Yes, this is true, Mora. We may even find out more about his relationship with Laura. Yeah, the next episode is The Cat's Tits. It's really, really good. Yeah, his backstory is really sad, Barrel and Josh. Not going to go into that today, just in case we've got anybody spoiler-free watching this, but yeah, we'll definitely find out next week. So, speaking of which, I'm going to let you all go. Sorry these past 2 episodes have been so short, just because Amy's had so much going on, and she should be back next week, hopefully. Looking forward to seeing her. Looking forward to seeing all of you. Once again, check out the stuff in the description down below. Got some great new music and a really cool charity you can contribute stuff to. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here and let you all enjoy your days, evenings, etc. Thank you all for coming by. Once again, Barrel and Josh, Morley Lee, Anime Lover Nicole, Ron Holler, the one spanner that rules them all, Peter Griffin, Bobby Catalano was in here for a moment. And if I missed anybody, I am terribly apologetic about that. And Morley, thank you so much. That really means a lot to me. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm really glad you enjoyed it. Oh, there's Bobby. All right. I will see you all very soon. There should be some new music up on Friday. And in the meantime, please believe.